Coleman Interview, and we are back with some live-ish stuff for Wood, Air, and Metal. It is March 31st. The ground is defrosting for the most part. At least tomorrow it's going to get cold again, because spring reception is going on in Ohio. So, that's where we're at.
I think, is it supposed to snow tomorrow? I think it's supposed to snow.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm actually not kidding.
Yeah, and I know. I look at this thing on my phone and I'm like, you gotta be kidding.
Yeah, I saw. You know, it's pretty much true so far. So I haven't looked, but it was like, I think it was like Monday or Sunday. I was like, oh, it's gonna be 70 on Tuesday.
Yep.
And then I was like, oh, it's gonna be 30 and snowing on Thursday.
Yep. I saw a thing and my friend
Perfect.
I'm totally prepared for this week. I got my flip flop, my toe shoes, down jacket, my swim. You know, it's like it's all over the place, but whatever. It's Ohio. That's the way that it goes. And the same thing with New York when I was in Buffalo. It was always that way. It's like you don't trust it until August, and then it's just then it's time for fall. So,
You get like one good month.
yeah, pretty much.
My dad, when we moved to Erie when I was younger, he was like, you know, it was like it's like 2 months out of the year, it's like the weather's perfect. And that's what you're going for. I'm like, yeah, but like 10 months out of the year, it's really not. It's like the opposite of perfect.
Yep. Oh man.
So what's new before we get into topics? Anything we're working on?
I mean, nothing really. But I've been like totally hooked on listening to Leprous lately.
To who?
Leprous. They're a Swedish.
Oh, the band, the Leprous band.
Yep. They're just fantastic. That guy's voice is phenomenal.
Is there a new record? Or is that the Pitfall one or whatever from a year or so ago?
I'm looking it up now. What's the name of the album? I've listened to Cole a lot because I started out with Pitfall. Yeah, the latest one, Pitfall. I started out with that. And The Sky is Red. Which I think you sent me that video of the drum breakdown.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
Like,
and he breaks like 7 sticks when he's doing it. But it's like, super awesome. Yeah.
It's like he doesn't even miss this thing. He's like, oh, and another. And another. And they did the live overdubbing, and it was just like, holy cow.
That's right. They had the guy like on the other cymbal or whatever. Yeah, that was cool.
Or Tom, he like comes in and starts hitting it.
Yeah, they're I guess you'd call them a prog metal band. But very cool band. Yeah.
Yep. Definitely not what I would expect from the name Leprous. Like I would expecting the
yeah,
a lot of driving and double kick and stuff like that, and it was like totally the complete opposite. Very melodic, airy, a lot of space, not a huge amount of guitar solo work. The player is phenomenal though.
Yeah,
like,
I think too they tour with a cellist.
Really?
Yeah. So there's a lot of like that kind of stuff in there too.
Yeah.
It's real. Unfortunately, a lot of those bands, probably a cost issue, but there'll be string sounds and they're almost always keyboards.
Yeah.
And it's different.
I love it.
Not the new Red Side Visible album, though. I played a lot of viola and violin on that one.
You did, and you did the singing, and you did the guitar work, and the artwork, and the video. Is there anything in there that you didn't do besides drums?
You know, I know this wasn't the topic, but it's like, man, the things you have to do these days to put out music. It's like, God, you got to be good at everything.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm like, I was telling somebody the other day, because I had got the Red Side Visible stuff mastered, or at least one song, and I really didn't like what happened with it. And then we went back and forth a few times, and I realized what was happening, which was fine in a way. He was kind of just doing like the industry standard metal mastering thing, and it really wasn't what I think was appropriate for this particular project. So I was telling somebody about that, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna have to do it myself, which I've been much happier with, and I think I finally got there.
No, I've been through the whole process, so
yeah, and I've made Adam suffer through the whole thing.
I really do enjoy it, so it's cool to hear it different takes. So.
Yeah, it's interesting that like little things change everything, and then what happens is you like fix one thing, and you're like, oh, I'll just go fix this. and then you find something else, and then you find something else, and you find, it's like you couldn't see it because there was stuff in the way. And then you get rid of something, you're like, oh wait, what's that over there? Oh, I should probably fix that too. And then you fix that, and then something else gets cleared out of the way, and all of a sudden you're doing a lot of stuff. But yeah, I was kind of telling somebody, I was just like, oh yeah, I had to do it myself. He's like, well, at least you know how to do it. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, I wish I was just like making music and practicing or whatever, and didn't have to learn how to do all this stuff.
The thing that's slowing me down with getting my own album out, it's just like I could be editing or I could be practicing, and that's a hard trade-off. I mean, most of the time, especially since what's the way to put it? If my students are varied this year, but there's some pretty solid players, so I got to stay on top of my game. I can't just kind of like wing it. Not that I ever really wing it, anyways. And I hate losing chops. That's the other thing too. Like, a couple of days off, it's like poof, all that work tends to slide, and it drives me nuts.
Do you think it comes back quick though? I used to worry about it all the time. I'd be like, oh, my hands they're getting behind, but I feel like now, like within a day or two, even if it was weeks since I worked on any technique, it comes back pretty fast.
I found that I just keep a standard set of exercises that I do every single time I sit down, every single day. Like, regardless if I'm going to have a long process session, it's 25 minutes. It's something that I can easily spare the time to get in there and just keep my hands loose. Like this past weekend when the tree fell down, it's like, well, I'm going to lose a whole weekend with a chainsaw in my hand. This is going to do wonders for my forearms. It's going to tighten them up like crazy. So I woke up Saturday morning, did my routine, did the chainsaw thing literally all day, went to bed, same thing Sunday, and it still kept my hands loose even though I was doing the other activities.
Yeah.
So I think that's
how do you do? So I used to do that, but I find I do better now, and maybe it's just a difference in being an improviser. Is if I work on technique, it's because I learned something new. Like I work on something new as opposed to being like, well, I'm going to use this shape again. That I already know. If I keep working on that doesn't get me anywhere. Like, I don't really get anything out of it. So it'll be like, oh, I learned something now. Whatever, some pattern or some shape or something, then I work on that thing instead. Because it's not like, I'm still like, that's a different pattern than the other one, but I'm still it's obviously got some chops in it. So I'm working on picking and working on the other stuff, but it's like a new shape, a new pattern, a new like memory thing that way when I'm improvising, I can pull on a bunch of different stuff. So I almost never work on something that I already can do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. And this is something where it's like, I think the difference a little bit is in the classical world, you're always going to run into situations where you need a specific technique. Like, you can't let your tremolo slide if you're going to play a tremolo piece.
Yeah.
You have to keep arpeggiations going. You have to keep your tone controlled at the same. So there's a lot of that you can do kind of within pieces, but I hate doing that. Like, yeah, exactly. And then the underlying thing is, like, I like to keep my forearms loose, and for some reason they get really tight if I don't. And it's not a whole lot of
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just doing that because I noticed that started to open up this section of my forearm. Like, yeah.
Did you ever do that Petrucci book? You remember that book? He had this exercise, and I used to do it all the time. Maybe, yeah. So you would and it wasn't fast. It was, you put your hand in this position. I don't know if you could see. So it'd be like, like an tritone sort of thing. Then you flip the two middle ones, and then you flip the two middle ones. Then you flip the two outside ones, and then you flip the middle ones again. So it's an independence.
Yeah.
And then you would do it. I don't know if you can hear that.
Yep.
And then eventually you do it like
Fret in between.
Fret in between. Whatever. I haven't done it in forever. And he would do that like all up and down the fretboard, But I don't know. It's I think you can do it for a little while and just get that independence going.
Well, that's one of the things that I do every day. Except I do it on the fifth string. You put all 4 fingers down. and then you keep 2 of them pinned and just kind of work on like 1 and 2, 3 and 4, or I'm sorry, 2 and 3, and then 3 and 4. Yep, lost my pick. I just did the dishes so my calluses are very soft, and then 1 and 3, and 2 and 4, and then 1 and 4. But when I'm actually doing it, I have a metronome going at about 100 beats a minute, and I switch them with that, and I do 4 sets each finger combinations.
Yeah.
Just to keep my hand loose, and then I'll do like. Get the hammer-ons and trills going, and then that little arpeggio study. We gotta stop doing this late at night so I'm not exhausted.
Should be warmed up by now, Adam.
I was warmed up, but this right here, I focused on particularly like not moving my wrist when I'm doing it and letting my fingers do it. And I noticed that it was like I kept stretching something in this part of my hand, and ever since I incorporated it, it's really made chordal stretches a lot easier. Because the general thing is like if you're compensating it with your hand, that works, but you're not using everything that's kind of angled here to its best advantage. You're kind of compensating by using this, and that'll happen at times, maybe even more so in improvised music than in classical. But the bottom line is I want to be as stable as possible at all times. You know, it's like that Gil Ordino, that it's a huge independence workout. I mean, that's just crazy. And then the chromatic, was it? Been a while since I did that. Obviously, so it's just
right.
Kind of, that,
he means like an hour ago. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like 2-3 months. It's like I learned that whole study and had it going. It's great, but then I was like, I was never really confident as a thing. Like I couldn't. That's just a blatant like show off thing of whatever, and that's fine. You know, if somebody wants to play it, I'm not knocking it, but I'm like, I'm not going to really use this in the concert. More of, I just use the studies as something to get inside of their head. Like, why are they doing this? What's the point? What are the executional things? And the are so absolute. Every single one of them is insane. Like the guy must he's a phenomenal guitarist, but he must hate guitarists. Like it's like, why would you do that? Like there's one where it's like, I got it. And you do it there, and then you move up to the 9th of this, and it's all barred, and it goes through each finger set.
Nice.
Keeping it down. So it's like you're holding a bar the entire time. It's 8 minutes long or whatever it is. And by the time you're done, you either are going to dip your hand into an ice bucket or you're going to go out and quit. You know, it's
maybe he had really low action.
Yeah, on a classical, I doubt it. But
you know, for recording, maybe it doesn't matter.
I think on an interesting thing, I think that totally makes a difference with classical recordings. Like you lose the dynamic range. The lower it goes. I mean,
I guess though, does the recording of that have good dynamic range?
Yes and no. Like one guy who did all of them, all the 60 of them, like 5 hours worth of music. It's unreal.
Yeah.
The chops on this dude are insane. And they're just, they're called the Transcendental Etude, and I think 60 is the right thing. It was 4 CDs, and it's just crazy. The playing on each one, and not only that, they're obnoxiously difficult, but the player, it was just like selling them absolutely fantastic. Like it wasn't like I just made these notes, yay! It was like, wow.
Yeah, right.
That's humbling. So it's all those things. So
it kind of reminds me. There was a time, like 20 years ago, or literally, where I wrote down every like 4 finger combination, you know. So like 1, 3, 2, 4, and then I had times next to all of them, you know. You know, whatever combination you could think. Yeah, maybe like 3, 4, 2, 1, and I would do it up and down the neck. I don't know that it was very useful actually in the grand scheme of things, but I guess there's some like independence gained from it. Maybe it's something you would do for like a week, not for like a year. But
And that's the point. I mean, it's independence of the fretting hand and coordination with the plucking hand. You know, being able
Yeah.
to instantly be like, okay, I'm gonna. There shouldn't be like, oh, this pattern is easier for me. It should be all of them to be easy to access. You know, ideally.
Yeah, I guess you wouldn't want. You shouldn't make decisions based on what your hands can do, sort of, right? You should
Yeah,
do what you hear and play it.
yeah, and well, I mean, and again, it comes from the classical world. It's like you don't get that choice.
Yeah,
If
sure.
your hands have to be able to do what's on the page, regardless. That's it. And that's a brutal thing to learn.
Sure.
But it's great. It's hugely advantageous. It's like, okay, that's just this chord or this particular layout here, and that's the way that this guy particularly plays them. Um, looking at you, Ragandi. So
Yeah.
he's a monster. I'm glad he quit, but at the same time, not really. His writing was unbelievable. Um, anyways, so how do we even get on this topic?
I said what's going down.
Oh yeah, that's right. We went with the Leprous thing. So it's mainly a whole lot of Leprous and Hiromi. Like, it just I stumbled upon her CD again in my catalog, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's just a freak. Like, absolutely. Just,
Yeah, she's awesome.
that opening track on her latest one, Kaleidoscope, is just like, who thinks like that consistently?
So if you don't know,
Pulls it off.
Hiromi is a pianist,
Yeah, jazz
and
pianist.
just incredible.
It's mind-bogglingly.
But it's
good.
like it's almost like prog metal jazz something.
Yeah. Like, and the thing too, she's got such a good sense of groove. Like,
Yeah.
it's not just technically, here's my 7-against-5 passage. Haha, look at me. It's like, no, it's got a swing and a groove to it. It's like,
Oh yeah, and her band's killing. It's like,
oh god, yeah.
what is it? Simon Phillips and why am I blanking on the bass player's name? He's awesome. Anyway, yeah.
It is.
He plays lefty, upside down.
Anthony Jackson.
Anthony Jackson.
Yep, Anthony Jackson and Simon Phillips are her usual band. It's up the latest album.
It's just like a killing rhythm section.
Mhm. Oh, she needs it. Like, not that she needs it to help her, but in order for her to get everything from these players that are absolutely top tier.
Oh yeah.
They go halfway with this.
Yeah, I feel like that's like the best thing Simon Phillips has ever done too. And he's done cool stuff, but the Hiromi stuff is like perfect to exploit what he's good at.
Oh yeah, yep, no doubt. She's. Every time I listen to that piece, I get like, oh yeah, I didn't catch that the last time. I didn't catch that the last time.
Oh sure.
It's just crazy.
Yeah, I kind of is. I don't know if it's fair or whatever, but and maybe it's just because they're both younger. I put her and like Tigran
Yeah,
in the same sort of world. They're not afraid of playing like low notes and like making it sound like metal, you know.
exactly.
And they exploit that, and they use the cool rhythms and different polyrhythms and stuff. So.
But it serves the music so well. It's
Oh,
not
yeah.
just the rhythms for the sake of the rhythms.
Well, they both groove hard too. Yeah, like you were saying.
Yep, and I love Tigran stuff as well. Didn't he just release something new?
I think so. Yeah, and it's good to do.
I think I have that, but I haven't like listened. I gotta just sit down and listen. So that's the kind of latest and greatest. Otherwise, I just started doing more transcriptions because why finish one when you can have 70 million going at the same time? So
Maybe when you're in transcription mode, you just go do it.
it's like the Philip Glass is almost done. Like, honestly, that's coming so much easier than I thought it would be. Like, I was expecting when I did his etudes, or I tried to do his etudes on guitar, it would be like, oh, this works great, and then you just hit something where it's like, yeah, nope, that's not going to happen. And it would be such a downgrade from what he was doing. It's like, I'm not going to just try and do that. That's stupid.
Yeah.
It's losing a voice in a Bach chorale. It's like, no, you can't do that. You got to keep everything going to give it the respect and attention that it needs. So that was the thing with Glass and stuff. Though I love being able to do some of it, that loss of certain things in the etudes was just like, forget it. I'm not going to try to. And I mean, I tried every solution that I could possibly think of, altered tunings, and some things would help, but then it would make another section totally ridiculous.
I think, at least what I've heard, you've been mostly sticking close to the original arrangement in terms of accompanying patterns and whatever else.
Yeah.
Have you done anything where you've done your own, like, just let's just pull it apart a little bit and see what we can do that might be guitaristic, or like apply, like turn one of those glass pieces into a fugue or something like that?
I haven't explored that directly. That has the thoughts occurred to me. Like,
Yeah, and I know it's a lot of work, so I know.
I mean, and not that I'm scared of the work. I just haven't. I
Yeah,
guess like, I don't start working on something till I can hear it.
yeah,
Like in my,
sure.
if I can hear it, then it's like, all right, let's do it. And like with this other project that I'm not going to completely reveal yet because I'm hoping that I can fill a niche till hopefully whenever it actually gets done. But as soon as I get the first movement done, I'll be
Right. Power mediocrity just gotta start.
yep. As soon as that's done, it'll be recorded right away and out there. But the and that's just about there. And I think I was going to do two different things. One of them exactly as the instrumentation was, like totally 100% following the notes on the page. The other one flushing it out into something that's going to be guitar.
Right.
Uh, I'm taking the Stanley Yates take on it, who's a classical guitarist and arranger who did the Bach cello suites and other stuff, a lot of other stuff. But he did the book for the Bach cello suites is the Stanley Yates book. He did all 6 of them. And one of his things that he puts in the beginning is like, these are written for cello, but I wanted to add voice lines to it to make it more of a guitar thing, very guitaristic in its writing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that are honoring of the Bach material, but at the same time turning it into like adding contrapuntal lines that Bach implies in his music, which is completely fine because that's legit what he did. We have enough of like the BWV 995 is a cello piece, also a lute piece, also a piano thing where you can hear how he flushes it out when he gets more available notes. So you kind of get into his methodology and you can take that and go back to the other things and kind of imply the rest of the harmonies there, or whichever, a moving accompanying line. It's interesting Helen Grimaud, if I'm pronouncing her name right, is a classical pianist that did that with the lute suites on the piano and added little things with it. Sometimes it was really cool, like the 1006 boom da 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 is wickedly cool on the piano, and she did some really cool additional lines with it because there's parts where it's like just a droning E and then with a single line above it, which is fine on a guitar and a violin, but when you have a piano and 88 keys and all this range, like you can, she turned it into a piano-esque piece.
Sure.
And it's really neat to see the way that she kind of added the voices to it. Other stuff, I didn't like the additions, but whatever. We're all going to have an opinion on it. The bottom line is she did it and we didn't. So, and that's kind of
I know. Well, there's a lot of that stuff too. Like I know there was some Hilary Hahn thing I saw where she played the Paganini Caprices, but then after she did, I don't know how many she did. She went into, I can't remember what they were called now, but basically they were the Caprices. Somebody rearranged them. They made them harder. Yeah, it's like this really cool, but it's Paganini sort of, but modernized a little bit and just exploited a bit more. I'll have to send you the video. It's awesome. But yeah, I think there's a lot of room for that, right? It's like almost like just what happens to a lot of the music from then is, maybe you do the first part of it, as it's sort of arranged, and then you sort of do the guitar version of it after or whatever. It's kind of an interesting thing to try. Yeah.
Yep. And just like in my head, I'm like, all right, I know what I'm doing, and there's extended techniques with it and everything else that it's going to be more of my label on it versus my note for note transcription. This is only what Philip Glass does, and so then I'll be like, okay, just kind of take it to whatever and see what, many projects in no time. So it's the way that it goes.
I mean, I guess the nice thing with a minimalist composer is you don't have to do a lot. No, I'm just kidding.
To an extent, yes. There's no doubt that's totally true. Some stuff and other stuff like
yeah.
Not Terry Riley's in C, but it's definitely a little. He flushes out some interesting ways. So.
I've had a soft spot for Liszt. I've always thought about doing some pieces of his, which you really don't hear much on the guitar. And not like the shred version, whatever. But like try to do something nice with it.
I've seen La Campanella from the Transcendental Etudes on the guitar, and I saw one of them that the transcription was just wickedly virtuosic. Like, holy smokes, that would be
Yeah.
cool to learn, but I don't have that much time to dedicate.
And no one can actually play it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that's like, whew. It's like pictures at an exhibition by Kazu, oh God, Yamashita. I'm gonna butcher the first name. So he did that transcription of it for guitar that is just like unbelievable. But pretty much he's the only guy that can play it. Like there's stuff that he does. He does tremolo with just his pinky. So
Right.
it's yeah, not too many humans on the planet Earth can pull that off. So and it's all there. You know, you can grab the score and learn it, but it's unbelievably difficult at times. Like some of it
Yeah.
is like, oh, this works, and the other stuff is like, holy crap! Like who does that? You know, the guy's wired like that. He's very out there, and he does absolutely brilliant work with some stuff, and other stuff I just can't listen to. And mainly, like his Bach cello suite's amazing. Pictures at an exhibition, amazing. Is the Firebird Suite by Stravinsky. It's like what?
You'll have to send me some of these because I haven't heard these. I don't think.
Oh, they're wickedly good, man, and totally all over the place. And then his Bach lute suites are just I can't turn them on. It's like within the first 10 notes, I'm like, no, I can't listen to this guy play these. I don't know what happened because, especially since the cello suites, I thought his interpretations were absolutely fantastic. So there's like this jump between the two. Maybe it's the more contrapuntal things that are going on in the lute suites that I just can't listen to him play them. But whatever, that's my personal opinion. He clearly it sounds like
Sure.
Podcast, like, well, screw that guy. I'll prove him wrong. Whatever. But that like his stuff is all over the map like that, and I can't. Half of me is just stunned that somebody would be like, "Yeah, let's totally put the Mirzagorsky on the guitar. Let's just do it." And
Sure.
what? Wild. I'm glad that he did because it's very, very, very cool. But at the same time, it's like I'd love to learn it, but
Yeah. What are you willing to invest?
yeah, exactly. Do you have
How many children do you have to donate?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, for a half hour of music, it would probably be like a year investment, is my guess, in order to keep it completely playable.
Yeah,
And
I'm sure.
that's just like, wow. Very, very cool, though. Very tasty. So you got the red side visible thing. Now, with this mastering, I'm going to ask the deadly question here. With this mastering, once you are done with that particular track, can we name that track, or are you keeping it under wraps?
Yeah, you can name it. It's called Snap Crackle Pop.
Snap, Crackle, Pop. Once you're done mastering that particular one, are you going to take that mastering setup and just blanket it across the rest of the tracks, or are you going to do each one individually?
Yeah, well, they sound similar, basically. Yeah, that's the plan. Is it blanketed? Maybe not. Depends on what's going on. If there's anything weird, but
Okay.
and then I'm not above. Like sometimes what happens when you're doing mastering is depending on the song, certain frequencies, like if you clean them up a little bit, can like really open up the mix, and it's all of a sudden it's like you take a veil off the mix in a way. At least that's been my experience. And since every song there's a similarity between them, right? But there's quite the variety in the songs that are coming out. So I wouldn't be opposed to like tweaking a little bit here and there to bring if something brought something out, or if there was a weird frequency or something.
So is it going to be like one of those blanket it all, then listening to it and go and cut back and spots that need to be cut back type of thing?
Yeah, I think kind of, yeah. Yeah, I'll listen to it if it sounds all right.
Yeah.
And they're about the right volume and everything's matching that way, then we should be good. Yeah, I find that interesting. So they have these meters. They tell you like what your dynamic range is. They tell you what your loudness is. But they're pretty good, but I feel like they don't pass the ear test all the time. I'm not sure how they average it. And they don't always match too. Like one brand might be slightly different than another brand, or at least I've kind of seen that. So I don't rely as much on that. Like I know, it's 10 or something. Okay, so it should be around 10. Also, I noticed a lot of most retro recordings, the dynamic range is more like 6 is what they as the kind of the numbers are, 6 or 7. And the loudness is like 10 or whatever. But then more like proggy stuff, the dynamic's more like 10 or 11, which just means it has more dynamic range. And then the volume's not as loud, like the loudness.
Okay.
So I'm happier to be in that range just because it kind of bounces around a lot, where there's strings sometimes and there's almost like choir parts or whatever, then sometimes there's whatever. So it kind of goes all around. I'd rather it be a little quiet. I feel like people can turn up if they want to and just not smash the crap out of it.
Mm-hmm. So. Cool. All right, and that's the breakdown of the latest and greatest.
That's right. On to your next session or whatever. Yeah.
On to the next
segment. Yeah.
So let's talk about the let's go with the starting with good instruments versus.
Oh yeah.
Let's dive into that little side topic, pulling off of my notepad of tell Tim to shut up about when we're texting so we can get this all out.
Right.
We never do shut up about it, really. We just now we're talking rather than texting. So
yeah.
It's starting with good instruments. So we started this discussion talking about pianos and the advantage of having a great action on a piano, and how do you get that, and how having a great piano could be motivating to just continually play it if you were first starting.
And more important, maybe, is it actually lets you play real pieces. Mm-hmm. So, like, the piano that I grew up with, well, there's two, but the action was slow. Like, you pressed it, it's like, then the key comes back, it's like, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but the action's really slow. Like, you couldn't, it just didn't respond very quick. So how in the world would you ever play, like, Liszt or something? Like, you just can't. Like, the keys don't come back quick enough. And that's ignoring all the other problems, mm-hmm. the tonal things that happen, and like the pedals aren't as good, or all these things that you kind of deal with. And then we were kind of speculating, of the great pianists out there, did any of them start on a piano like that, or did they have better pianos to start with? And then I found this interesting quote from Keith Jarrett, who's arguably the greatest jazz pianist ever, and one of the greatest classical pianists ever.
One of those
he's like, I've always played Steinway. I wouldn't know what else to play. It's like, or something like that. It's changing the words a little bit, but it's kind of like, so he grew up with Steinways when he was a kid. I've played some Steinways in college and stuff, but I certainly didn't grow up with them. And even the Steinways, like, at schools, usually don't get like free access to them. Like, they're kind of like locked up at night, and maybe they're out on the if no one's in there, you can kind of sneak in and play for a little bit, and somebody might yell at you, or you write something. Like, my first year of music school, I wrote a composition recital, and there was a Steinway, and we used that, so you're allowed to use it. But yeah, typically don't even get to use it. So it's like you don't even know what you're missing in a way. And it's not a very good excuse, maybe, but it sort of got us to this idea that was like, if you start with good instruments, are you more likely to... Is the advantage going to compile over time that it gets really hard to catch up to somebody like that, in a sense? And then we were even talking about, like, with music school, I had like a $200 Yamaha classical guitar, used, or maybe it was not even used, brand new, like $200 classical guitar. And this was when they weren't as nice as they are today too. And it's not a knock on Yamaha, but it's like you spend $15,000-$20,000 to go to the school, but then you use a $200 guitar. Mm-hmm. How good can you possibly get on that thing?
That's a perfect question with that. It does have you run into the limit extraordinarily quick.
Right. Did not take long.
No, not at all. But that's also that I would say that skips over one particular question of if you're in music school, if you're going to school for music, you've already put your serious face on.
Yeah, sure. Good point.
If you're paying 15 to 20,000 a year, let's say, or whatever, then it makes complete sense. If it's $80,000 at the end, minus whatever scholarships and whatever junk, then a $5,000 investment in your instrument through that is really
Especially if you want that to be your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I thought of when I bought this guy. It was just like, this is where I'm going, this is what I'm doing, so I need to have the tools to do it.
Yeah, I think at the time I was going, I mean, I just didn't have the money. The thought of like spending even $1,000 was too much. Like I just didn't have the cash. In hindsight, I think, well, that's kind of silly. You should have just figured out how to get it somehow. I don't know how, but I was just trying to eat. So it's like, probably shouldn't have been in school for music. You know what I mean? Like in a way, like it was.
It's an odd trade-off. Plus you're so young. In one regard, you're not thinking that much more. Like you're thinking of the future, but you're not getting a grip on what's going to take you to that next level musically. You really don't. You know that the other guitars are good, but you don't get. And I think the other thing too, just especially in our case, we were both lefty, so we couldn't somebody else's high-end guitar and be like, holy cow, that's what I'm missing.
Yeah, right.
Motivation to it.
That's a really good point too. Like just being left-handed, it's not like I didn't even know what jumbo frets were until like 15 years after starting playing. Like I didn't even know they existed. It didn't even dawn on me. I mean, I might have read about it, but I didn't get to try them ever, I played on like vintage size frets, and then when I finally did see jumbo frets, I'm like, really?
I've been working
seriously, like I've been fighting this whole time. And most of my guitars don't have jumbo frets, but it was more like it's easier. It definitely is easier, and for so many reasons. I don't know. It was just kind of funny.
Well, I had a similar thing with this guy, a classmate of mine and I. Like there was 3 of us that ordered guitars at the same time from the same guy. We all got them at roughly within a week of each other. And when he was one of my friends was ordering one. He had bigger hands than mine, and I was ordering a 650 millimeter scale, and he was ordering a 640. I'm like, why the hell are you ordering 640? He's like, your hands are huge. He's like, why make it harder? And I'm like, that's a good point. So I called him.
Right.
Change it to 640. Am I insane? In retrospect, I probably should have done 635 or 630. It's like, we always talk about the Damon killer, and our Damon being a classical guitar luthier that builds the top tier instruments, $40 type of thing.
I don't even know that name. Okay, there you
go. David Russell plays them. I think Barwaco plays them. Just really super high-end classical instruments. Double top, crazy. 10-year wait list type of thing.
Well, then you can afford it.
Yeah, exactly. Over 10 years. If he's still alive by the time he gets
right.
So anyways, this one of my colleagues, Cheryl was her first name. I can't remember her last name. But she had the same guy that built mine at Thames, and she had hers built to a 630. So it was super small in comparison to everybody else. But the thing was a stinking cannon. Dynamic range was gigantic. It was super easy to play, at least from what everybody told me, because I couldn't really do anything on it.
Yeah, right.
But, but I would hear it, and Nick Lucis came and did a master class. This is 15 years ago, and he had a Damon, and she blew his out of the water, just poof. Not even
nice.
Wow, that's pretty stinking cool. And that started a conversation of what goes into the guitar that's going to make a difference with it. Maybe the shorter scale has more tension on the strings, so it's going to project more, type of thing. Regardless, going down that bunny trail, but it was really it ties in with having a good instrument, and it's she spent the money and got that one built specifically for her. And she was a fantastic player too. It was really remarkable because, you could tell she was an older student, and that's saying a lot considering I was somewhat of an older student. But she was definitely an older student, and she would get horrendous stage fright, whenever she would perform. and I went to her final recital like as her biggest fan. Like, come on, let's do this.
Yeah.
Obviously we're supportive of each other, and she stinking tore it up in the
Oh,
final
good.
recital. It was nothing. It was like, all right, and like
Yeah,
we
that's
all
cool.
play, but like it was always the nerves that got in the way. And when she ditched that, man, boom, it was fantastic. So having that good of an instrument, and she had that the entire time, clearly translated into playing better because she had this dynamic range that nobody else literally in the class had.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that brings up an interesting point too. Is I imagine some people might listen and say, "Come on, like I can play a $20 whatever guitar, and I sound fine," you know. And there's some truth to that, right? Like plenty of people play cheap guitars and they sound good. Um, but that or and even guitar's a little weird because you can set up a really cheap guitar and
yeah,
it can play really nice. Like the action on it can be easy to play. So that doesn't even take that much skill to do, especially now. Like most any guitar you buy can be set up and play nearly flawlessly. So the action kind of thing is not that hard to get to. Um, but there's a difference between playing the notes right or playing the right notes and then playing the notes right.
yeah,
So it's like,
exactly.
and when you have the instruments that really aren't up to snuff, they don't even give you the option of playing the notes right in a way.
No,
You might play the right note, and if you have a sound that's not very dynamic or not very like the timbre doesn't change that much, but maybe it doesn't matter that much. But if you're trying to be dynamic, you're trying to be colorful, you're trying to project, it makes it like an enormous difference. No matter how good you are, you cannot take that $200 guitar I had and win like GFA with it.
oh yeah, exactly.
Like they won't even be able to hear it. I mean, they probably won't even be able to hear it. And if they can, it's just gonna sound like clink, 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 clink. It just didn't have the qualities of a nice instrument. So, and you couldn't ever learn how to play a nice instrument by doing it. So it's not like if you spent all that time on that instrument and somebody finally gave you the whatever you called it, like what was that?
Damn it.
The Damon. Somebody finally gives you a Damon. It's perfectly set up. You probably sound better on it, but you have no idea how to play that guitar.
Yeah, it's
Like
you don't know what the top end is in terms of the dynamic range. You don't know
yeah,
what it is.
you're not gonna know how to control all those little nuances and stuff. You're gonna have to spend some time with that instrument. Years, not days. You know.
That's what I like about this guy. I mean, I've had this guitar for 2007, so
Right. Yeah, and it's been your primary instrument for
like I know it
13,
inside
14
out.
years. Yeah.
I know the style with it and where to play it to get the results. And that was the other thing that I found. To talk about the color thing, I never thought that would be a big deal in terms of the instrument. Because I did the same thing. I started on a Yamaha. In fact, I think I have yours here in the corner.
Keep it.
So the so anyway, so it's like I started on that, and then you know when I got the Thames, somebody else was trying it, and they like did that whole like color movement. And I
Right.
was like, holy cow, you don't have to move that much to get a totally different color. Like on the Yamaha, it was like to get anything different, I'd have to move a full 6 inches.
Right.
So, to get
And it was only 2 colors. Yeah. No.
yeah, exactly. It was going to be, you know, like Dolce and Prontocello. That's all you get, you know. So it was really remarkable to see the sensitivity of that. And that's the other thing. It's like so, it kind of drives. There's clearly an advantage to starting on a good instrument. Like all those hurdles are kind of out of your way.
Right.
But you know, I would always be like, yeah, but you know, you don't want to throw like a 5-year-old kid in playing a $5,000 instrument. You know, that's kind of like the $5,000 investment. If $5,000 is nothing to you, then it really doesn't matter. But if it's like,
Yeah.
you know,
It's maybe a little different with a guitar. But let's say you had a Steinway piano, right? And you have 3 kids or something, and you're a musician or whatever, I don't know, or musically inclined. if one of those kids takes up piano like and gets really into it, I mean, gosh, the world's their oyster, sort of, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Maybe that's exactly what happened to Keith Jarrett. It's like he was just it's set up and it all worked out.
Yeah.
And I don't I don't begrudge anybody that type of thing. It's like those are the dreams that we all wish that we had.
Oh yeah, certainly.
Like great, man. He turned out to be Keith Jarrett. Everybody's loving his music. Super. So there's clearly big advantages, but there's always a matter of trade-off with like a Steinway a kid can play on, and you're not going to worry about them breaking the thing. But my Thames would be like, yeah, no. I remember when I would have people like come into lessons or do a trial lesson, and they'd want to size it up, and I'd be like holding the Thames above them, not letting it touch it, because they're kids, and an accident is not something that I can easily recoup from on the guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, with that, but in the $100 to $150 range, with the guitar, that's more of a thing where it's like, as long as the action is good, you're going to be able to play. So I think one of the things is like, it's starting with a good instrument doesn't necessarily mean like huge price tag, as long as the barrier of entry is lower than it would be if you didn't do any adjusting. Like action on a guitar, super low, super easy to play right out the gate. It's like, okay, so you don't have to work incredibly difficult to get, or incredibly hard to get to a certain point of fretting the first note. It's like versus like the guitar I started on, where you had to get a running start and to get it to go down on the fret. Exactly. And everybody's got that story of the instrument that they had where it was like, oh, I didn't know you could change that.
Oh, they were so bad though when we were starting.
Generally, they were. I mean, and it wasn't until I got my lefty, well, it wasn't even lefty, it was a Les Paul that I flipped the strings on, and had somebody do a setup that I was like, wait a minute, this is how it can go?
Yeah, right.
Seriously? Like, oh, this changes everything.
Well, even like stuff like the intonation on guitars I was playing, like there's horrible, not having a quality, you just fight so much stuff, and you don't even know that it's messed up.
Like that was the thing that Esteban did with regardless of like the caricature that he is to an extent, and not a bad thing. It's a great marketing thing, but his guitar thing, like he really meant this. He's like, I wanted to come out with a cheap guitar that was easy to play, so it wouldn't turn people off to be like, oh, this is really, really, really hard. It's like generally easy to fret, and I've had students that come on with it, and I'm like, this isn't really well set up. It's like super low action. It wasn't loud, but it was balanced well, and which was surprising because they were heavy as hell. Like it's like this plywood guitar that it's like, oh my gosh, that weighs a ton. But they were great instruments. I mean, I don't even know if they still sell them, but that was his big thing. He's like, I mass produce these things to get it so that people could get a guitar where they don't have to do the whole running start elbow drop to get one note fretted. It's just like,
yeah,
okay.
Sure. And it's kind of funny too, because in all the like Mel Bay books and whatever, if you started playing back in the day, it all starts here. And it's like that first fret on so many guitars was like impossible. Like even now, like if you had to do it now, you could do it, but you would be like, I really don't want to do it. And you've been playing guitar for, you know what I mean? Like we'd both be like, really? Like, do we really want to? I don't know if it's worth pushing down on this fret. And that's what we were trying to learn on.
Which also leads to the whole thing of, since somebody with the advantages and disadvantages of an instrument, how much is it in terms of the learning curve? Just sheer absolute determination to play.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other. I think that's a whole other thing though.
I think it's a little bit intertwined, just in the sense of, some people will quit regardless of what type of instrument that you start them on.
Yeah, sure.
Other ones are just going to be like, it doesn't matter what you give me first. I'm going to play this thing till my fingers bleed consistently. So,
sure.
But I get what you're saying about it not being part of the same subject, but there's a little bit of crossover.
I think what you're getting at is, okay, so you have two kids, let's say. They're both obsessed. They're both on some trajectory. They're going to be musicians. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. It's already started. The bug was set. That's all they want to do. The one has the guitar where you can't play an F. No matter, like, if you put 1,000 pounds on it, it still doesn't go down. And then the other one has like a Strandberg, or something. So you're on page 1 of the Mel Bay book, and it goes E, F, G, or whatever. The kid with the Strandberg's like, oh, whatever. I kind of get it. The kid with the 75,000 pounds is like, I can't even get the first note. And they could spend, if they were diligent, they might say, well, I don't want to move on till I get this first exercise, And then like, I can't get this note to press down no matter what I do. And so now you have this kid with a Strandberg that is finished the book, and you're still trying to press on the F. You can't get it to come out. So yeah, I could see like that compounds over time for sure. So
Yeah,
maybe that's where you were going with that.
a little bit, yeah. My thing was it's just a matter of drive, like internal chutzpah to be like, I'm just gonna keep playing this thing.
Yeah.
And you can have somebody that has a mediocre amount of drive that would be turned off by that high action. And you have somebody with a high level of interest and drive that it wouldn't matter. They're still going to do it regardless, and they keep working at it. That's where I was kind of going with it. But
yeah, which obviously we must have had that, right? We didn't stop.
It's one of the things, like when I have child students, when the parents are asking me about an instrument, I never put them into a steel string guitar. Like never an acoustic.
Oh, really?
Electric guitar, fine. But steel string acoustic, it's like I have yet to see one that's a small size where the action is accessible.
Even those like baby Taylors?
Yeah, even the baby Taylors. Like I've had students at the collegiate level come in with those things, and they're great instruments, but I'm like, you guys, you might want to get that lowered. I mean, it was really high.
Interesting.
Higher than my classical, that's my gauge. It's like if it's higher than my classical, it's too hard.
Were they just set up? Because I've seen those things, man, and they were just like, like electric guitars.
Yeah, and that's what my Taylor 514 is. It's like better than one of my electric guitars. But, the big babies, the ones that I've seen come in, haven't always been. There's been some, but, and just to counterpoint that, like that new Taylor Academy line, every student that I put in has been like phenomenal guitar for money. But
that's interesting. So most people I've met have a harder time with nylon strings than steel strings.
But I'm thinking in terms of the kids, like let's just say between 4 and 7, like that particular age range, mainly because the amount of pressure and pain. Like a steel string, it's definitely more painful. Like that's one of the cheese things. It kind of hurts. I'm like, yeah, sorry, you're gonna have to suck it up. That's the only way to do it. But
you can also tell how much they practice because it really only takes about a week. That if they actually play it every day, maybe a little longer, a month.
Months to get the calluses developed. To any useful thing. So the nylon string though is just like it lowers that barrier of entry and it's more comfortable. It's not that it's not hard, but it doesn't put an extra stumbling block in the way of like you have to push really hard on the steel string versus that. When they're older, older students, I'm a little bit more okay. It doesn't matter. Just if you're 12, 13, something like that, and you really want to play acoustic steel string, then that's fine. And you're just gonna have to work a little bit harder depending on the action level. With electric guitars, I don't really care because generally the action is super low. And the same thing on beginner nylons, they keep the action relatively low comparative to because I know this is like it's probably another 64th of an inch up from where the other ones are.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature of the beast. It's a trade-off. I like the volume. With that
is for sure.
That's just it. So I guess it kind of latches together, but that's just one of those things where it's like in one sense, having an easy playing instrument is the advantage.
That's half of it, maybe, right? There's the sound thing though too. So
yeah, exactly. So that was one of our many subjects.
Well, just to pull this in there too is, I wonder a little bit on those like 3 amp user types.
Yeah.
If that has something to do with this as well. So even though it's pretty easy to get a generally well playing guitar today, and this is me knocking on modeling a little bit, and modeling's so easy to get, but it doesn't really react the same way an amp does,
Yeah.
in my experience at least. And so a good amp, like working with an amp as part of your instrument, when you use modeling, it doesn't really work that way.
Hmm.
And it's more like you get a sound and you either like that sound or you're not, but it's not, you miss all the, there's not like all the dynamic things happening. There's not all the color changes that you can do. Picking here and picking here doesn't really sound all that much different in modeling. Like you almost don't notice it. It's all those little things you kind of miss out on. So if you never had that experience, you never had a good amp, and you never had a guitar that could take advantage of those different colors and sounds, and a lot of times, like in lefty guitars, where the knobs were actually wired backwards in the wrong kind of way, where it's not so much about twisting at the, like these all twist the opposite of, well, the same way as righties,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I don't turn up this way. I turn up by going backwards, so to speak, because it's a righty pot. And they're not linear. So if you wire them backwards, it's actually, you basically go from zero sound to all sound. There's no same thing with a tone knob, and this happens on like every lefty practically. They're all righty pots, but they wire them lefty so you can turn them up like that. But then you don't have any, you can't even control the volume. It's either all the way on or all the way off. And it's either the tone is all the way engaged or all the way off. There's no in between because they're logarithmic pots, audio taper pots. So you can't wire them backwards. So that kind of stuff too. Like, so if you don't know that, so you're like, well, I don't ever use the volume knobs because it's because it really, that's totally how I was for years.
Yeah.
Because there was no in between. There was either like, well, the knob doesn't even do anything. Like, it's either on or off. It's like I turn it all the way. It's basically the same. Is there a volume change? I can't tell. And then it's off. Does the tone change? I can't tell. And then it's all the way off.
A whole range of 0 to 1 on an amp.
There's like, you can kind of find this like little line, like where you can sort of do it. You can also, when they're done that way, you can do like the fake wah thing really easy. This one's actually, I don't know if you could hear that, but
Slightly can. I know what you were doing.
well, when it's the lefty way, you can really do it easy. When they mess it up and do it backwards, because it's like, so you get that advantage at least. But yeah, so it's like all those little things, and then you use modeling with it, and then you use a guitar that doesn't have very much dynamics, and yeah, it plays like butter. It's like nothing, but more than likely, you won't even know that you are missing those other things.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's one of the things, like, this segues well because, we were going to take this in a different direction, but let's jump into the upgrading of guitars. Because that's something that you just did recently. New pots, new wiring,
Oh yeah,
ups and everything else, just to kind of expand what was already there. And in a sense, repair it as well. It's like stuff degrades over time. That's just the way that it is.
well yeah. So a lot of those were fixing the lefty thing, like where they were wired backwards. A lot of it was just putting in better quality wires, and then even the pots I changed out. Yeah. So if anything, 'cause I only really have, I would say, maybe 2 really like premium guitars and like electric guitars, and that's the Brian Moore guitar that I have and the K-Line guitar, and they both have really good, like everything in them was made high end, right? They said, I'm gonna buy the best potentiometers and the best this and the best that, I'm using good wires, and and then you really notice it with those 2 guitars, just how clean they are, like the way that they respond to you, and there's a lot of things. So I thought, well, at least I could go and change all the wiring and do that to the rest of my guitars. Potentiometer, they cost $5 for the good ones. They don't really cost that much. And then got new capacitors and all kinds of stuff, and just rewired them. Made the wire shorter, all the little things. And I think it's made a nice difference on those guitars. I also upgraded some pickups on a few guitars.
Yeah, what pickups did you get?
So I have a Eastman guitar, which I do really like. It's a really nice guitar. I don't know that it must be upstairs. And the pickup that was in it, it was always like fighting the guitar sound. It was a little too loud. Even when I backed the pickup way down, like the guitar is very like woody, acousticy sounding guitar without a pickup. But then the pickup came on and it was like, it changed the sound of the guitar. It always drives me crazy because it sounds really good unplugged. So then I was kind of looking, there's sort of all kinds of different ones you could get. It's a humbucker pickup. But they're like the low whine PAF style pickups. I found a good deal on a used pair of burst buckers, which Gibson made. So it's a burst bucker 1 and a burst bucker 2. I basically got those used for less than the cost of one of them new.
There you go.
But the Eastman only has one pickup. So I took the burst bucker 1, which is the less wound one, and put that in the Eastman. Made a huge difference. It actually sounds like acoustic and nice quality. And then I took the burst bucker 2 and put it in the Hagstrom in the bridge. So I have a Hagstrom guitar too, where again the pickups just drove me crazy. And it made a nice difference in that too. So even those kind of things. And then I have a Seth Lover pickup that I'm going to put in the Hagstrom neck position. So, which is another low whine PAF I just have sitting around. So kind of those little things, and it's actually made a nice difference. I think I've done it to about 4 or 5 guitars now. Even this guitar I rewired. I didn't change anything really, but it was kind of being weird. Like the guitar was being weird. And it didn't sound right. So yeah, I rewired everything. I took all the wires off, rewired everything, new wiring, and I think I put a new capacitor. Oh, I took I don't like the treble bleed capacitor thing. So basically a treble bleed is when you turn the volume down, you don't lose the treble.
Okay.
But I actually don't like that.
All right.
So I like it when you turn it down, it kind of gets a little darker. So it's just another way to get some sounds. It's like a different dark than turning the tone knob back. So you get all these different kind of things. So I took that off too. So I took that off, but changed the wire, and it made it sound better.
Yeah. And that's a definite advantage to an electric guitar versus any type of acoustic guitar. You get what you get in an acoustic guitar. Yeah, you might have a pickup in it that you can change out, but that really isn't going to matter too much because it's primarily an acoustic sound with that. But on an electric, you can go, all right, I'm going to change the guts. You know, if you're decent with wiring, it's great. I mean, that's nice because you can upgrade it and extend the longevity of the life of the instrument.
Yeah.
Give you something new, to an extent. You don't have to necessarily buy a new guitar. You could drop $150 on a pickup or whatever it was, and it's like, oh yeah, great, new sound. This is cool, and it's invigorating the interest back into that particular instrument.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing though is you're still limited by the guitar itself. Like, I do like this guitar. This is the first nice guitar I ever bought, which is a Carvin. I bought this in 2000. But acoustically, it's really quiet. It's kind of it's not very dynamic. And I don't know if I have this other guitar right here, the K-Line. It's like the difference in volume is it's remarkable. And yeah, they're different builds or whatever, but I can't get that out of this guitar, what I can get out of that guitar. It just doesn't have the dynamic range. So
yeah, that's just the way that it goes.
But no matter what I change wiring wise, it doesn't help. This guitar plays like butter. This thing plays amazing. So
yeah. That's it. That's it. On an acoustic guitar, you can buy new strings, buy different brands, try them that way. That is one thing with like a high-end classical. The strings totally make a difference. Like, I started out using Diodarios on this, and I liked it because it was louder, but I wasn't just like, wow, that's really like that's a huge difference. And then I switched to the Galley titanium strings, to which, strangely enough, Nicholas Galusis, the guy that had the dam in there, was like, yeah, your guitar is not ready for titanium yet. It's like, it's not old enough. Like, as it ages, that might be the type of string that you need. And then I stumbled on the Galley Carbinos, and I was like, what just happened to my instrument? Boom, loud, total dynamic control, great tone. I absolutely loved the strings, but like they would shred. Like the first string would shred within a week, which was really expensive. Even a solo string was like $3, and then I'd have to wait for a couple of days for the stability to come out, and I was playing the game of like, what's shredding next, But it was the best sound that I could get for that. And then one day I was like, all right, I'm just going to take $200 and buy crazy different strings. Hanebach, Godin, whatever. It didn't matter. I just grabbed whatever classical strings that I could.
Yeah.
And the Hanebach carbon tops were like stunningly good. It's like, holy cow. And they lasted. They didn't shred. Sold. And then I stumbled upon the Hensei, which are pretty much what I'm using. I use the Hensei tops. And I use Augustin Regal basses. And
those are the Hensei ones are the ones I bought, weren't they? Yeah.
And the thing is some guitars sound great with them, and other ones not so much.
Yeah, I noticed that guitar. It sounds better now. So I think I've had this on there like 6 months or something, but it actually got better. And I don't know if it was this. The strings just don't sound as stale as they kind of did initially. They sort of like loosened up. I don't want to say they loosened up, but I don't know, they warmed up or something. And they became much more musical.
Yeah. Like with mine, it all depends on my mode. Like if I'm concertizing, I'll have a lot more string changes going on.
Yeah.
Then these are still pretty good. Like the scratchiness of the strings from just a nail contact.
Sure.
And if I'm recording, it's always new strings. It's like new strings, absolutely, and that's just the way that it goes. So it always depends on the mode and what you're going to train. And honestly, I changed out the Diodario basses that I would normally use all the time to the Augustin because I remembered a set that you had that I snagged the basses from.
Oh, nice.
These are really warm.
I've always liked the Augustine ones.
Yeah, I mean, like, the basses were phenomenal. They're really warm. They lasted forever.
Yeah.
They still had a punch to it, but it wasn't, like, knock you over. And the big thing to me is, like, the Diodarios sounded absolutely phenomenal for 3 days. And then they just kind of went, womp, womp.
Man, I don't think I've ever liked the Diodario classical strings. And it's probably the guitars I had a little bit. Especially the treble strings. They sound like plastic to me. Like, I cannot get...
Nylon on them definitely sound like nylon, and I kind of like that a little bit. But on this guitar, I'm limiting what I can do. Like I know if I put the Diodario on, it's great if I need strings in a pinch. I always have it set as backup, but I'm not gonna get that note without overplaying it. And I'm not gonna get that punch or that projection with a Diodario. It's significantly less,
Yeah, it's like a clicky, plasticky thing.
Yeah, exactly. I took, like, during my undergrad, I had one semester where I would change my strings every week. Like, I bought, 13 sets of Diodario, Pro Art, normal tension, every Sunday night, restringing the guitar.
Nice.
Just
because you hated yourself, because it takes, 4 hours to do.
I got really good at changing the strings. In fact, now it takes me, 10 minutes to change my classical strings.
Nice.
It's just.
Do you have a drill bit? Do you have
right here. So no drill bits. I mean, the string grinder definitely helps, and I'm just so used to tying them in a way where they're not going to come loose.
Yeah. I don't remember the last time I had a classical string come undone.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had one. I've had them break, but I've never had them come undone.
I've had when I first was learning how to even tie it or whatever. I've had the E slip before.
Yeah.
The nice thing though is they slip, but then you just loosen it up.
Exactly.
You tie it back in there.
And sometimes when your string breaks, depending on where it breaks, if it breaks down here and you have a ton of lines up here, you just pull it through and.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, when you think about shorting them, then you're like, eh.
yeah, it's
I feel like doing that. Yeah.
with that, and I saw this one guitar on that Dream Guitars site. They really did something really interesting with the headstock. It was an empty middle, and it was just the fingers were on the sides, so nothing here at all, and it just went to the side of the headstocks, but it kept the strings totally straight. Each string just was like completely horizontal to the tuner, no break in the line.
Yeah.
Like it was a big thing in terms of stability for tuning, stability of playing, sustain, and that makes sense. I mean, that's why I set these up as good as I can with the winding areas to keep.
Yeah, sure.
I think it does make it's enough of a difference where I can hear it.
Did you ever try to experiment to put them all on the sides?
I don't think I tried it intentionally. It was more of that's how I did it.
You're just like you're sitting there whining and. Oh crap!
I've been on my fourth beer. Nothing's really. I'm barely sipping up everything. So, but now it's like.
Do you have a guitar with Sprizzels?
No, I did. The only locking tuners that I've had have been the Paul Reed Smith ones.
And what a pleasure.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to do a locking tuner on a classical, or headless on a classical, but it ain't gonna happen because of the string material. There's so much stretching that they do. Everything else.
Yeah.
Maybe like pre-stretched strings or something. I don't know, but you don't get a whole lot of like motion out of it. Once they're in, they're in. So I'd like that. I sent you that one picture of that crazy guitar on Dream Guitars, that arch top that was kind of like a hybrid Parker Fly, but.
Right. That was cool.
I was like, now that is cool. It was very cool. It was probably like $25,000 or whatever.
Yeah, of course.
Somebody bought it, but it was a gorgeous looking guitar. Very unique design breaks, breaking with tradition, and like even they said they're like the balance on this thing is perfect. Like you can hold it up by the strap button, and it'll just sit on your finger.
Oh,
totally.
nice.
Which is like, now that's just cool. I don't know what the thing sounds like or anything else, but that type of woodsmanship or woodworking manship, whatever the word is, woodworker quality. I'm drawing a thing.
Workmanship, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, workmanship works. So it is really cool to me. It's like, now that's some pretty slick takes on that. And who knows? It was a headless one, right? Yeah, it was headless.
Yeah.
But anyways, so yeah, that was cool, and I think that's my new surfing site. Go to Dream Guitars and just be like, yeah, that's 5,000. That's this. That's it. I'll never buy it, but
I'll take 17 of those. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Do these come in bulk? Can I get these at Sam's? The bulk artesian guitar.
I'll only buy it if I can get 100. Yeah.
And I love the idea of owning a unique instrument, but I dread it at the same time because it's not replaceable. Like everything in my office is insured, including this guitar. But if something happened to it, it's not like I'm gonna get the exact same thing.
Yeah,
I might
sure.
get something. That's a total plausibility thing, and not that I haven't sat there and designed and put something together in my head every day, as serious guitar players do. It's like, I wonder if I could do it with this guitar. I wonder if I could do this with the guitar. I wonder if I could do this. So, and that kind of like, that's just the way that.
That reminds me. This is another lefty thing. When you go and you're starting to look at the custom stuff, and they're like, "What kind of neck profile do you want? D, C, this, that, and the other." And I'm like, I don't know. I've only never tried.
Yeah.
I really maybe C. I think I'm pretty sure this is a C. I don't really know because you just don't get it.
You don't think the options. You can't sit there and go, because you're holding the stupid thing upside down. If you're holding anybody else's, it's like, okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, if it's symmetrical, great. And I guess most of them are to an extent, but even then, you don't get to really use them.
Yeah, sure.
Just
because then it's like the balance point's in a weird spot or something. Yeah.
like I finally got to try a Strandberg, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. But it's also completely upside down, and they have that ergo neck that like changes, and it was like,
Right.
there's with this. I love the idea. I think it's phenomenal. I would love to own one at some point, but it's like trying it upside down was just an exercise in futility. So the
And
key
people
was,
seem to like love or hate those. So if you never got to try one,
yeah, like I'm not going to order a $5,000 electric guitar to get that type of neck. You know, through Strandberg's custom shop. That's just
yeah, right.
a big unknown. And if I hate it, now I
You
will
said
say,
that's what you wanted.
yeah, exactly. I,
Oh
I will say that I have not seen a used lefty Strandberg stay on a site for more than like 2 hours
yeah.
on a sale site.
You know, I wonder in like 10 years if you could just be able to find headless guitars like in pawn shops for like $30.
Who knows?
It's
You
such
know,
a big fad. At some point, I wonder if it'll go away.
I
Because even like
absolutely.
when we what we didn't realize when we started is you could buy like a 60, 70 Strat for not that much, you know, or a Les Paul or whatever. And now they're basically priceless. Like,
Yeah,
and we missed the boat because we just didn't know. And even then, I mean, $1,000 or whatever would have seemed like a lot. But now that guitar is worth $50,000. So
it's crazy to me. I mean,
yeah,
does it really make it that much better? Like, I just can't see it being that much better because it's that much older.
I don't know. You know, so I have probably going on long here. I have this '68 Gretsch Corvette. That was my dad's. Let's see if I can pull it. And yeah, it needs some love, but like the way it aged, it's like it's super resonant. It feels good. It's got a vibe about it. Um, you know, it's pretty light too. Like it just, I don't think you can mimic that with a new instrument.
That or you
And
definitely can't do that.
and I could definitely imagine um finding like a Strat or whatever from like the 60s and just and it having a vibe like this, but like a little bit, you know, fixed up and whatever, and not right-handed.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
like
less.
I don't know, it could be amazing. I think like something you couldn't get in another instrument. That like worn in feel, the sort of like Stradivarius thing or whatever, you know, kind of happening a little bit.
You know, but does it happen with a mass-produced guitar? You know, there's clearly something to it. I just don't get what that. Like I can see that happening with an acoustic guitar because it gets louder. But even then, like you kind of peak at like the 10 to 15 year range, and that's it. It doesn't continually go up. It like stops. Like the wood can only get so dry. It's not going to get any drier unless it's just.
Yeah, I think that that's a lot of it's like what kind of glue and stuff. Like there's all kinds of theories anyway about why it might be better.
Yeah,
In all the sweat and tears and love and blood and whatever else.
all the frustrations,
Yeah.
cocaine.
Because I think most of my guitars have gotten better
Yeah, absolutely.
since I've had them.
Yep.
And this guitar, I really now that I picked it up, I'm like, crap, I should really set this up and do it right. But like I have to replace the nut is one of the things that's sort of stopped me. And I kind of don't want to because like a bone nut and like it was like original,
Yeah.
you know. So anyway, yeah, I mean it's got just kind of vibe about it too. Like it sounds great.
Cool.
I don't know. So I can get it. I can get why people like older instruments like that.
Like I said, I think that there's clearly a thing to it. Just I don't see it just yet. Pretty sure if I ever get a chance to try something like that, I'll probably change my mind.
Yeah, I think that's probably it. Same deal here.
It's I saw like Norman's rare guitars. So that Norman's rare guitars is like I've seen 70s Strats for sale and somewhat reasonable, like 4K.
Yeah.
Like a lefty 70s Strat. They're ugly as hell, you know, black body with the maple neck, and I'm just like, God, that looks disgusting to me personally. Like I don't like the color combination on that. But if it was something like, you know, like like even a red body with a maple neck, I'd be like, okay, that's cool. But that black, the two-tone black with the pickups and everything with that white neck, it's like so glaringly different. It's like, I don't get it. But whatever. Like I love my favorite Les Paul is the black, like the studio that's black with the gold pickups, and I'm just like I love that color combination. Much, of course, I don't really like Strats, so that might be the other thing too.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Yeah, I'm definitely a Strat guy.
Yeah.
I did try a 70s lefty Strat once, and it was heavy, but it was awesome. It was really nice.
Hmm.
I was like, I need to figure out how to get this. It was at that Southpaw place.
Oh yeah, maybe
And
that's
I can't, and it was reasonable price too. I think it was in the 2000s or something.
Hmm.
Which is a lot of money. So it's not like it wasn't a lot of money. So that's also part of it. But I imagine that it'll probably go up in value. It's just not, you're not going to lose any money on it.
Yeah, I think in that case, it's interesting because like I haven't seen a 60 Strat left-handed that goes for like $150,000 or anything like that.
Yeah.
I've never seen it.
If you found like a 50s or 70s or like early 60s, late 50s one, it definitely would.
Before Leo left the big cutoff.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and actually, when we were starting, like 70s Strats, we probably could have bought for like
Oh yeah,
$100 or something. Like no one wanted those. Now they finally kind of turning around, but
cool.
anyway.
All right.
All right.
Well, that does it for today. We've gotten a couple of subjects off the list. Thank you all for listening.
Yeah.
Way to go. And
Yeah, leave us some feedback and all that stuff too, or share and like and subscribe, and we appreciate it.
Signal flares.